Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the third episode of the Rolling With It podcast. In this episode, I have Monica Lawson, and this episode is called Connecting with Your Spiritual Team. As you can see behind me, I've got the amazing mountains in Sedona. This is not a fake background, this is literally where I live. Just pointing that out. But back to this episode. Monica Lawson is a spiritual advisor. She had a near-death experience at 10 years old that opened her up to see, feel, hear, and know all the things from the other side. She's very spiritually gifted, and she's on this podcast with me discussing why it's important to open our gifts and release our traumas and triggers and messages that she transmits from her spiritual team. This episode is so rich and so full of amazing wisdom through Monica's amazing connection to the spiritual realms. I highly suggest you watch this and take notes, because there's a lot of things in here that can benefit you in your life. When we connect to our mission, when we're really connected to our soul and our spiritual team, amazing things happen. So definitely check this out, and would love to hear what y'all think. Enjoy. All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Rolling With It podcast. Today I have Monica Lawson. And Monica Lawson was actually in a tragic car accident at the age of 10, during which she had a near-death experience. Since then, she's been able to hear, see, feel, and know the other side. As a sought-after spiritual advisor, she shares this guidance to help her clients discover their purpose, connect with their spiritual gifts, and to co-create a life of joy. She gives readings to people from all walks of life, all faiths and belief systems, from all over the world, including celebrated actors, movie producers and directors, Grammy award-winning singers and songwriters, Silicon Valley executives, and fellow spiritual teachers. Although her clients range in age from 11 to 80, they're all looking for the same thing: to find their mission. Monica, thank you so much for being on this program with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I can attest to I've had a session with you. We've connected quite a bit over the years, so I can attest to she is the real deal. Like she is connected. She gets really interesting messages, and you this all happened after you had this near death experience, right? So tell me a little bit about what you experienced in this near death experience at 10 years old.
Sure. It was a car accident, and I kept going in and out, but here's the interesting part. Before we actually had the impact, I was in the front seat. And back then we didn't have to wear seatbelts. It wasn't against the law. And so, of course, I didn't have a seatbelt on. And before impact, I would say maybe 2 minutes before, I heard loudly, "Get down and pray." Don't know why, but I did. And so I literally lay down in the seat and just started praying, and I fainted. I just fainted, and I only remember the parts where, like, I would wake up trying to catch my breath, but blood was just running down all over my face, and then I would faint again. And then my mother actually we were in the middle of nowhere, and my mother gave me to a truck that came by to take me to the hospital. And I remember hearing everybody saying, oh my God, she's dead. And I would wake up again and let them know I'm not, and then I would faint again. The next thing I remember, I was in the hospital and I was on a bed, I guess the emergency room, but I was laying flat on the bed. And my little sister, it was actually her second or third year old, I think it was her 2nd-year-old birthday, was laying next to me. She was in shock. And I remember reaching out to her thinking, oh my God, she's gone. And I fainted again. But this time, as I fainted, I felt like me sit up and then kind of just start floating up. And I could hear everything. I could see everything. I could see myself on the table, my sister on the table, very clearly and very loudly. But as the further I got up, I started feeling differently. And it was the most amazing magical, oh, I just tear up thinking about it right now, feeling in the whole wide world. Just think of the happiest time of your life times 1,000. And so as I was going up and I could feel this just beautiful, amazing love energy, I kind of stopped at a point where it felt like I was like on the corner of the room looking down. But as I turned, I could see that it was heaven. It was amazing. I saw differently then than what I see now. Back then, I just saw kind of like shadows of people, but there was no fear. It was amazing and wonderful love. And I heard a really strong voice that I knew was God. I didn't ask, I just knew. But I'm still looking forward, but I feel everybody. And when I looked like this, I saw everybody, and then I looked back down. And it feels like I was in there in that beautiful feeling for a while before I heard the voice. And the voice said, basically, I know you want to stay, but you have to go back. And I didn't want to come back. I didn't. It was just the most euphoric feeling in the world. Think of being loved, safe, just joy, all over and around me. Wow. And I remember when I heard you have to go back, I was a little bit disappointed. I kind of had to talk myself into going, it's going to be okay. You got to go back. But I had this knowing that it was important for me to go back. Mm. And so that kind of helped it out a little bit. And then I was kind of like fighting going back a little bit, and they just kind of all walked me back. And I laid back down, and then I woke up.
Wow. I've been able to meet probably over 10 to 15 people that have had near-death experiences, and it's always kind of like similar to that. Like like it wasn't their time, and like they had to come back, or they had some sort of mission to still fulfill. But everyone I've met that have had this kind of experience come back with these like crazy spiritual gifts. And it's really interesting. You're more in tune, and maybe like more intuitive, and you have quite a bit. Can you explain a bit of what the gifts you came back with?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, at the age of 10, I could hear, see, feel, and know the other side. So can you imagine being a 10-year-old and you just feel things walking by you? At night, the activity was crazy. And so I would see things. I started to see people is really how it started off, where I was like, oh, wait a minute here. And feeling like I would just be doing my schoolwork, and I would feel somebody around me, and would look around, and there would be, everybody was sitting down. Nobody walked up to me. And so I could feel and hear all that. Well, at the age of 10, I kind of wanted to shut that down, because you do kind of tend to think like, what in the world is going on here? So I tried to shut it down as much as I could by just not participating, listening to it, or acknowledging it. And then I would say around my 20s, other side kept knocking and said, this is not going to go away. You have to do this. And the way it primarily started was I would be asleep and somebody would appear right next to me. It looks like a human for me, would appear right next to me on the bed. And of course I'd get up screaming, going, what in the world? Somebody's in the room, and it wasn't. So this went on for a couple of years, when then finally I decided I'm going to go get checked out. Let's just make sure I'm okay. And so I did, and everything was fine. And my youngest sister said, I see this psychic. I think you should try this. I'd never seen a psychic ever. Maybe he can provide some answers for you. And I sat on it and I was like, oh, I don't know. My husband was like, what do you have to lose? Just go. So I schedule the appointment and I go, and sure enough, first thing out of his mouth is like, you have this gift. They've been knocking on your door. The time is now. You need to start. When I got out of my car, I tell my husband, I'm like, this man is crazy. I am not doing this at all whatsoever. But of course, as time went by, I went ahead and decided that I wanted to try this and see what this was all about. And so I can everybody has a spiritual team from the minute you get here to the minute you go back. Everyone has guardian angels, spirit guides, ascended masters, archangels, and then, of course, our higher being, our creator, God, universe, spirit, whatever it is that you want to call your higher power. And so once I started, letting go and being open to the process, I get to see them. I get to hear them. They sometimes have me smell things, know things for the clients. And so it's been the most amazing gifts in the world. But here's a little secret that I've learned. We all have it. Every single one of us can hear, see, feel, and know. Some of our antennas are a little bit stronger than others, of course, but everybody has this. And so that's what brings me the greatest joy, is providing the messages for everybody, but also letting everybody know that they have a piece of the magic.
Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, I think when you do your sessions and you share this insight with them, you're actually helping them open that door for them.
Absolutely.
Right. And when we say we have these antennas that, some are stronger than others, what I've learned in my journey is the more we release that stuff, our beliefs, our old stories, we get, that antenna becomes stronger.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why is that?
I think the traumas really weigh us down. And it closes off our hearts and our feelings. We want to protect ourselves. And so as we start releasing those traumas and the healings and everything comes off of us, we're a clear vessel the way we were born. And so that just opens us up for hearing, feeling the other side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, as we develop these gifts and we're able to kind of navigate the world better, in a sense, because you're getting the messages, right? It's almost like a cheat code or something, that it's like, now you're more connected to going this way or that way, rather when you're holding on to all the traumas. It's more like you're just constantly thinking about worst case scenarios and, really being analytical about like what are the next decisions to make and things like that. And when the more we clear that baggage and we're connected more into, our antennas are stronger. I like using that analogy, and we're just getting the messages. So it's just go here and do this and follow that guidance. Right?
We definitely surrender more to life.
Mm-hmm. And in order to do that, though, right? Like to surrender more to life and to kind of make those steps and make those decisions, you got to go in the unknown. Right. And so with the many people that you probably work with and they need clarity, right? They're coming to you because they're not sure about their lives or where they're trying to go, and they have different ideas and they have different directions, but that one direction that's being guided to them is causing them to step into a space that's like really scary. And so what are the kind of the messages that you get for people to follow their heart and go on this journey?
Well, having experienced one of my readings, my biggest joy is really letting people know every single one of us has a mission. Our lives really matter. They're extremely important, and we're here to get something done. And so I tend to focus on mission first and letting people know exactly what it is, what their mission is. And then what really comes in are the healings. It's you're having to take care of this, you're having to take care of that, do this, do that. Now they are sometimes told their next steps and things like that, but it's really about what it is that you're here to do and how you're going to get there. So it's directional guidance that I get from each individual's team.
Right, that's amazing. And I had my call with you in a very vulnerable period in my life. You read my book, which which I still think it's amazing that you read it in 2 days. But in the book, there's the time of the dark night that I went to, and it was, I've been paralyzed before, and that was probably the most difficult time I've ever had to deal with, because I was literally like in an ultra paranoid state. I was literally like, I was delusional in a sense. And I may have had an entity or something that was taking me kind of down that route and stuff like that. But like also being on this journey and experiencing like that level of darkness, we got to get comfortable in kind of those spaces, because as we are transmuting it, that's what's actually taking us to our journey, is it not?
It is. It really, really is. And thankfully, you knew, or you were told by several of us, that it was the dark night of the soul. Most people don't know that. And so they allow it to really cripple them and take them down and shrink them and take a different route than most of us that know, okay, we're going through something. We're going to be okay. We'll get through this. We just have to know that we have to heal. Mm-hmm. And everybody's dark night of the soul does look different. Like some people, like yours, was probably it was really, really heavy. Yeah. And some people's are like boulders or, little roller coasters and things like that. But the quicker we can let humanity know that this is part of life and we'll be okay, we just have to heal our traumas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I've had to really accept that this is like that. My dark night is not like as comparable to a lot of other people's that I've spoken to or kind of learned. I was upset for a while. I was like, why did I have to go through such a ridiculous time? And for, and it wasn't even like me necessarily that needed to know that I was going through a dark night of the soul, that I knew there was an end. It was my family, because they were, they were really struggling because I wasn't making sense. And it was for months. And I was just angry and getting angry at them for reasons that, didn't make any sense. So it was kind of tough, but I guess the tougher roads that we on, and I don't know if I'm like, I feel like I'm inflating my ego here a little bit, but it just means it's the bigger purpose or the bigger mission that you're kind of set to be on.
I would agree with that for sure.
What was also really cool in our first session was you got that insight where it was just like, oh, like we're gonna meet.
Totally. And I had no idea where that came from.
Because we did our session in 2017.
Wow.
And I think you came to Infinite Love. You came to McAllen in 2019. I think so. Mm-hmm. Right. So it was 2 years later, and we had like no idea. And you're here, and you're giving me these readings, and you were validating that I was going to write a book, and that I'm a spiritual teacher, and that there was all these things that I had to do. And then you were like, yeah, like they're saying we're going to meet. And so it's interesting that you get kind of, these kind of like premonitions and stuff, and then they happen. How was that for you? Because I feel like you were really surprised by that. And this also, even 2 years later, seeing how we actually met.
Yeah, I remember as I was saying it, I was thinking in my head, why am I saying this? Like, why is this actually coming out? Now, sometimes during the readings, I do catch myself where I kind of like step aside and, I'm delivering just without even having to really maneuver it. And that was one of the moments as that was coming out. I'm like, why is this coming out? I had no idea why it was coming out. So to see it all happen was amazing. I love it. Prophecy does happen quite a bit with me. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't that shocking. I think it was just kind of strange for me to be telling a client that I'd never met that we'll be meeting.
Yeah, you sounded like really surprised and stuff. It was cool. And and so, like how, like, this is like regular for you, right? That you have these prophecies, you're in the conversations essentially with, other beings, interdimensional beings, angels. Is it just like having a conversation with like somebody, like is at this point for you? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it definitely is. So during the reading, or before the reading and during the reading, I call my spiritual team in, and then I call the client's spiritual team in. And my primary is hearing them. So I write down word for word exactly what it is that they're saying. And then sometimes they'll give me visions, or they'll give me a feeling, or just knowing some information. So it is like just a regular conversation. What I get really excited about is everybody's team is different. So I get different personalities.
People, yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of nice to, that everybody's teams are different. And so I still experience a different conversation with each client's team.
Mm-hmm. And so what have you gotten? I'm sure you've had probably a lot of people during this time of COVID and these big change and stuff like that. What are the messages that you've been getting as far as navigating through this time?
Yeah, that for sure was lots of messages coming in. But the first one is really for us to take this time out and use it for ourselves, to reset ourselves. We humans tend to get into just, doing the same thing over and over and over again. And what worked for us 5 or 10 years ago, we're still doing because it's a habit. And it might not be, what we're supposed to be doing now. So reset was the main message I kept getting, is use this time wisely to really reevaluate each area of our lives. And what's no longer working for us, let it go, to make room for this new stuff that's coming in. I also received that we should all be looking at our values. What are our core values in life? We're taught that, you're born, you go to school, you get a job, you get married, you have kids. And so we're following what society has bestowed upon us. And each one of us is here to live a completely individual life. Right. And so your life might not look like that. So why put the added pressure for your life to look a particular way? And so they've definitely been telling me to let everybody know to take a look at your own core values. What's important to you? How do you want to live your life? As parents, I kept hearing, look at your family values and things like that. So it was, the values, resetting, connecting with one another. I know that was a little bit hard because of the pandemic, but just in your own household, just everybody coming back and connecting. So a lot of self-reflecting during this time.
Yeah, I can, I think for me, we're all conditioned to, live a certain way, to, like you said, to get married and have kids and get the job and, check off all the boxes. And then most people go do that. And then they just end up in these like mundane, like unfulfilled lives that they're just living over and over again, because we actually want the surprises and the excitement and the adventure. And we're closing that off when we're kind of just following like the cookie cutter way of life. And I think because I had my accident, it really kind of freed me from that in a sense, because I was going to school for accounting and finance and stuff like that, and I was just doing it because all the other Indian kids do that too, and so that was really just like my mindset. But my accident actually made me turn to a different direction and actually start looking at what is it that I want to do, and what is calling me, and what is, and just kind of like those deeper questions that people don't, I would say maybe before COVID, most people, hold on a second. That's my 11:11 alarm.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's like it's my joy alarm. So,
love it.
It's just a reminding to get into that into what we're creating, you know what I mean? And so but yeah, so I think like, you obviously having your experience, and like they're basically nudging you like, hey, like this is what you're supposed to do. And sometimes we have tragedies and traumas and things that direct us to getting to a space. And now COVID really happening from this global collective manner to get people to reflect and go within and be like, what is it that you really want to do? I guess I question, to what percentage of people are actually doing that, and, who's still kind of glued to the news and like, staying in the fear of it and stuff like that. But as we're kind of moving into this new time, and I don't know how far away we are from that, but you're just seeing just on the internet too, just how many people are just, selling themselves, or like really just kind of putting their skills out there, whether it's a coach or like an artist, or like, people are just creating more. And so is it that this new age or this new space that we're moving into after all of this, is it about connecting to ourselves and just really, everybody kind of, doing what they want and creating their own businesses based on their gifts and things like that.
Absolutely. I mean, that's our journey. That's exactly what we're supposed to be doing. And so you are seeing it, more and more people are finally going, okay, this is enough. It's time to, reset and really get back control of my life, for sure. But I think the most important takeaway is that that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Not following the cookie cutter way of living.
In order for that to happen, though, also is a lot of things need to change, right? Whether it's, government, political, education, like there's, I get really irritated because things like shadow work, things like going in and really learning how to like deal with your emotions and having that like self-reflection. People are only really learning that like, like when they're forced to. I feel like, right? It really, like, there's a tragedy that, like, if this was in schools per se, like, if we grew up like, oh, like, this is how you deal with your emotions and whatever, like, we'd be living in a whole different world, right? And so I just feel like, how far away are we to, like, implementing this stuff to be more mainstream?
It's interesting you bring up school, because that's my biggest message I've been telling my husband. I'm like, we have to change our educational system. I mean, that is just a given. It has to change. There are some beautiful, private schools that are starting to make those changes. I just wish our whole school system would really change it to mindfulness, meditation, talking about our feelings and, getting them out, and healing and things, even eating better. I think all of that truly needs to change. I know it can become overwhelming if you watch the news and you think about the government and you think about all this other stuff going on. But what I like to tell people is work on clearing yourself, because when you do that, you will then at least clear one more person. And then that person will clear two people. And it's a ripple effect. It's a wave. So if you concentrate on yourself and really doing the work for yourself, you will ultimately affect others, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, and so as a spiritual coach myself, a lot like the way I kind of guide people is like, you got to see every trigger that you have as like, we spend so much time like every time like we're blaming the outside world or somebody that made you feel that way, but the only reason why you're triggered and feeling upset is because you have that in you. And so the trigger's actually telling you like, hey, go inside. There's something in there that you need to look at. And instead of blaming the world or other people, and the more it's like we all like live or I feel like I don't do it anymore. But it took me a long time to learn this. But we all like feel our pain to a certain degree, and feel our joy to a certain degree, and then don't go further than that. And it's because we're kind of like holding on to this stuff. So the more we get triggered and we're like, oh, I'm like triggered, this means I got to change the definition of it and be like, where is this in my body and what does this mean, and sit in it, right? Like that's like the one thing that people don't do or are afraid to do, is because it's so painful to like sit in the emotion, but they don't realize that their depression and anxiety is this is the cause of that. Right?
So like, true. True. I was in a class one time, and I've never measured this and I haven't researched it, but it shocked me enough that it stayed in my head. In one of the classes, they said that if you really allowed that emotion to fully come out and feel it, that the actual emotion is only 7 seconds. And the rest is us processing it, and whether it's grief or whatever, we're dealing with our traumas. That really stuck with me. So that really freed me to go, okay, I'm going to feel this. Whatever it is that I'm feeling, I'm going to actually feel it.
So that's interesting. That brings up something Dr. Joe Dispenza says, because Dr. Joe says that on when they measure the actual chemical of the emotion, it shouldn't last long. Like the chemical lasts for about 90 seconds. And the thing is, what people are doing is like they have the emotion, like this person did this to me and I feel angry about it. And then they go and they tell more people. They call their mom and they call their best friends and they're just saying like and talking shit about that person, you know, and what you're doing is you're just creating more and more and more of that emotion, and it's funny when you really kind of understand it that we're just pushing ourselves into our state. We're actually the drivers of this, and we have the choice to sit in it, just allow it to be there until it's gone, and then direct ourselves into more positive momentum thoughts.
Absolutely. You know, I want to go back to what you were talking about triggers. In the same class, God, this class was amazing. This girl was having an issue with someone chewing gum. Smallest issue in the world was somebody chewing gum. So when somebody was chewing gum, it would just drive her crazy. And so after she really sat with it, she realized that anytime her mother was like getting on to her, whatever, her mother was chewing gum. So these triggers can be small triggers as somebody chewing gum to, you know, of course, the big ones that we all know. But I'm glad you brought up the trigger part, because most people don't realize that it could just be even somebody chewing gum. There's a reason why it's bugging you.
Right. And then you just think they're the problem. It's so ridiculous to me now that you know,
Yeah.
you know, like, because like the phrase that like I've heard before that is what like kind of hit me was that the issue's not the issue. Mm-hmm. Right? Like you're triggered by something that's happening outside of you and you think that's the issue, but it's something deeper that you just, you know, we somehow fall into the illusion of if we just put it away, we never have to think about it, and it'll never, you know, and it's you know, this is why they need to teach this in schools, right? Like
Absolutely.
that's why we need to like learn this when, you know, we're younger, but it's you know, it really irritates me and it gets me upset. And I think I wrote a post on Facebook like a few days ago, like, you know, shame on society. Like, you know, but yeah, I mean, it's such an important piece, especially like doing this work, because we meditate, right? You meditate, you calm your brain waves, your brain down, you get into a calmer state. And then that allows, a lot of times when people go into meditation, some of these emotions come up and then you got to move through them. But you can also just do it like all the time. Every time you get triggered, you know?
And to move through them, it's so much quicker than holding on to them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. And so I'm kind of getting to ask you right now, if there are any beings present right now, and if there's anything coming through.
Oh my God, I love it. You know, I actually shut everybody down if I'm not in session, because it drives me nuts. Uh-huh. So everybody is shut down. Now, of course, my team is here. My team is all here. I allow them to come in, but for anybody else, I shut it down, because I would go to restaurants and I could hear everybody's team. Wow. Or I would go to, you know, a college graduation and oh my God, or a heavy restaurant. And so I now know that I have to shut everybody down before I do anything.
What does that look like? How do you shut everybody down?
I basically have a visualization and an affirmation and set the boundaries straight. I even have to do it at night, every night. Like every night I have to tell them that I'm not available for visitations, for healings, for transitions. Because if not, I'm up in the middle of the night screaming because there's people all alongside my bed.
Well, I'm just imagining like the other realm, like, oh, like these are her hours, you know what I mean? Like she's turned it off. We got to go to somebody else, kind of thing. Or wow.
Absolutely, I didn't even know we could do that until I started asking other spiritual teachers. I'm like, how does this not drive you crazy? And they're like, oh, boundaries. You totally got to set boundaries with them. They have to listen to you. And I'm like, what? Now, every once in a blue moon, I'll get somebody who's really feisty and will still come in, even though, or if I forget to say my boundaries at night, they will come in.
That's so interesting. It kind of reminds me, like, in times that I've gone to workshops or like I've really done things that have like elevated me. Um, there was one time where like I kept the lights kept going out in my room.
Oh yeah.
Like the breaker had to keep getting switched and stuff, and then it
Yep.
happened in like multiple houses, and I was just like, okay, this is crazy. And somebody had told me like, oh, like your energy is just like all over the place, like you need to ground it, you need to like just
Yep.
intentionally, that's what it
Yep.
sounds like what you're saying, like you just have to like intentionally kind of be like, all right, I'm done.
Yes.
And the once I did that and just kind of like grounded my energy, like didn't have the issue again. I was like, huh, it's
That happens. I was walking into the living room one day, and Bill, my husband, was watching TV, and literally the actual light bulb exploded.
wow, exploded. I didn't get
Yeah,
to
I mean,
that.
it literally
I didn't
went
get
poof, and I was
didn't-
like, whoa.
I didn't get to that level. That's insane.
Only happened once.
That must have been a hell of a day.
Right? But that does happen to me too with the lights.
Okay, so since your spiritual team is present, I'm wondering if they have any messages that want to come through for whoever.
Oh my God. Now that I will definitely answer, because it actually started this morning. They just immediately, I opened up. First thing I do in the mornings is open up to my team and just say, I'm ready, and so as soon as I started, they wanted everyone to know a couple of things. The first one, again, is that everyone has a mission. Everybody's life is important. It's valued. You're here for a reason. That's the first thing. The second thing, which I think was so beautiful, they wanted everyone to know, and they're actually talking to me right now, yes, 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 that no one is ever alone. No one. They are always with them from the minute, again, from the minute we get here to the minute we go back. Everybody's spiritual team is with them at all times and just wanting to help in any way, shape, or form. And I mean, any way. So they definitely wanted people to know that. And then thirdly, what they were saying this morning was that they want everyone to know that we're supposed to be a community. It's not, we're not here to figure this out alone. We're here to help a community, because in that community we'll help another community, and so on and so on. We're really here all together as one. We're supposed to be helping one another. Everyone was, not only each individual is given a gift or gifts, but each city, each town, each state, each country. And we're all supposed to be working together and helping one another. And the quicker we can get there, the better off we will all be.
And I mean, you do see a lot of, division and stuff, like just with COVID and the vaccines and a lot of things that are like happening. And so, but as we, I think that's the evolution of what we're, what's happening right now. And we are all one. We're all connected. Even if everything is a reflection of you, right? Like everything that happens outside it, when we really get into the triggers and we get into the stuff, we get into this understanding that everything is a reflection of you. Everybody's showing you parts of you, and I feel like that's always hits me in a way when I really think about that we're all one. We literally are all one because we're all mirroring each other, and if we understood that, we'd be able to help each other on like a whole other level.
Oh, for sure.
Right. That's cool. I love like all of those messages that came through, and for everyone who's like listening, like this is all something really really take it to heart, because find those parts of you that feels separate from others, or feels divisive, and like those are the nooks and crannies that we want to work on, so that we can live life more fluidly. That's what this is like about at the end of the day. And when we can get into that flow, that's when we're being led to this mission, which is, I'm on such a crazy journey. Like, it's just, I'm blown away all the time. Like, it's beyond your expectations.
Oh.
And it's, we got to get out of like, being controlling and like thinking we need to know what this life should look like, to 10, 20 years and stuff, because when you can really kind of be in the flow and follow your heart, it's like things can change in an instant.
For sure. Vic, I'm going to have to interrupt you because they're not letting something else go. I'm like, okay, guys. They're also saying right now that no matter what you've been through or what you have done, you can still turn it all around.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa. So somebody really needs to hear that, is that no matter what you've been through and no matter what you've done, it's never too late to turn it around.
That's right. It doesn't matter. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people get caught up a lot, right? When you're older and you've been a certain way for so long, and if you look at it on a scientific level, like your brain is wired, and you've been wired into like a personality or a state of being for a long time, but like we all can change, and it's just a matter of you believing you can, and taking those steps and going in that direction, and also knowing like that we're always a work in progress.
Always.
Like,
I always like to tell people we're learning from the minute we get here until the minute we go back.
Mm-hmm.
The whole journey.
I feel like people get caught up in like that. Like, it's just going to take me forever to get there. To get where? Like,
So true.
Like it's constant. There's like you were always working on ourselves. I'm sure even with you and having these gifts, like you have to constantly work on yourself.
Constantly.
But at the same time, your antenna keeps getting stronger.
Absolutely.
That's so awesome. Cool. So is that it for them? Do they have anything else for us?
Let's see. They're also saying that if they're really wanting to focus on people who feel like they've done something wrong. I'm not sure why, but they're really wanting to focus on that right now. And they're saying that the minute you make the decision to turn your life around and set the intention, they will automatically see that it can be done. Like, they'll get a little bit, and then they'll get a little bit, and then they'll get a little bit. So for people not to think that it's too hard to turn their life around, that it will happen rather quickly. It's just really making the decision to turn your life around, and then setting the intention that you want to turn your life around, and your team will step in. One thing too that I forgot to mention is that we have to grant our teams permission to help us, because we have free will down here, and so we're allowed to try to figure it out ourselves. But the minute you give your team, hey team, I grant you permission to help me, they will step in immediately and start helping us, moving roadblocks, moving us forward, bringing us the teachers, the healers, everything. But we have to definitely decide to work with them and grant them permission.
Yeah, that's good. When you say that, I'm thinking like this is like what I wrote my book for. It's just that for so long I considered myself a fuck up, and saying that no matter what, they kept saying no matter what you've done, and what you felt you've done some wrong things, I was so deep in to alcohol, and I felt like I caused this accident to myself and to my family, and it was just there was so much to work through. And so when people, I feel read my book, and you could probably attest to that there's a lot I had to kind of go through and transmute and move through, and I just feel like if I could go through all that, anybody can.
We all definitely can. I didn't even put two and two together. You're so right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I think we all tend to have that. I'm not good enough, or I did this, so I really, really screwed something up. And it's really not the case. I mean, as soon as we really start to heal from the traumatic event, we'll really realize really quickly that sometimes things, not all things, but some things do happen for us. To keep us moving forward. But yeah, I didn't even think about that, Vic. You're probably right. That's probably why they wanted me to say that.
That's what was coming through. I was like, oh, this is about me.
I didn't even think about it. Yeah.
Awesome. So, I mean, I'm sure people are listening to this and they're like, how do I work with this lady? Like, how do I talk to this person? How can they contact you, and get a session? And how do your sessions work and all that stuff?
You got it. So the sessions are an hour long. They're done via phone, and they can go to themonicalawson.com and you can book through the website. There is a bit of a wait, as you know. It always takes some time to get in to see me, but I always tell people trust in the divine timing, because every single time when I go on a session, they're like, okay, I didn't really believe in divine timing, but this, and this just happened this week. And I'm like, I know it. You're always in when you're supposed to be in.
Yeah, it's so perfect. I can totally attest to that too. And and yeah, so her website is also in the description. So if you're interested in it might be a couple months out, but it's worth it. So just, it's going to be at the right time for you. And she does amazing work. So I highly recommend sessions with Monica. And thank you so much for being on this call with me and having this conversation. I feel like it was really fun. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
Oh, thank you for having me, Vic. I love that we met, and I love that we're doing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, till next time, everybody. Next week we'll have the next episode, and check out Monica Lawson. Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode. Just wanted to come on here and share with you, if you don't know already, I've written a book called Rolling With It, Lessons Learned While Sitting Down. Rolling With It is the same name as this podcast. Check it out on Amazon. I go deep into my journey from having my accident back in July 29, 2006. So, and really that being the catalyst to my spiritual journey. And I go deep and I'm raw and I'm real, and I share with you all my experiences and all the things I've learned along the way. So definitely check it out, guys. Rolling With It, Lessons Learned While Sitting Down. Have a great rest of your day.